Every story you hear is someone's truth. If you feel ready to share your own, write to us at OurSilentStories@hotmail.com. Your voice matters here.
I grew up believing the church was the safest place on earth. My mother used to say that no matter what happened in life, the church doors would always stay open and God would always listen. When life hurt, you prayed. When you were lost, you turned to God. That's what I was taught from the time I could barely read. So when the man I married began to break me, not with his hands, but with his words, his silence, and his control, I turned to the only place I thought would help. I still remember the first time I walked into the pastor's office. My hands were shaking so badly that the tissue I held felt like it was tearing apart. I sat across from him, trying to explain the things I barely understood myself. "He screams at me," I whispered. "He controls everything, the money, the friends I'm allowed to see, even how long I'm allowed to stay at the grocery store. I don't know who I am anymore." The pastor nodded slowly. He didn't ask for details. He didn't ask if I felt safe. He simply folded his hands and said, "Every marriage has struggles. Pray for patience." Patience. That word used to sound holy, but in that moment it sounded like a life sentence. Still, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that if I prayed hard enough, if I waited long enough, if I was gentle enough, everything would get better. So I prayed. I stayed. I tried harder. I smiled wider on Sundays, sang louder in the choir, and pretended everything was fine. But every week, I felt smaller, like parts of me were quietly fading away, slipping into the shadows of the life I pretended to have. Months later, when things got worse, I went back to the church again. I walked into the elder's office with hope clinging to me like worn-out fabric. "He scares me," I said. "I feel like I'm losing myself." The elder leaned back and sighed softly before saying the words that would haunt me for years. "God hates divorce." And I nodded, because back then I thought God hated me too. After that, I stopped praying, not because I didn't believe, but because I was afraid of what I'd hear if I asked for guidance again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my husband's rage, and even worse, I heard the silence of the people who could have helped, but didn't. Silence can be louder than any scream. One night, after a particularly cruel argument, the kind where the words still echo in your bones even after the room goes quiet, I walked to the church. It was late. The building was empty except for a few flickering candles at the front. I sat in the very back pew, the wooden bench cold beneath me. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Are you still here?" And for the first time in a long time, I didn't hear silence. I heard my own heartbeat, steady, stubborn, defiant. It felt like the sound of something inside me refusing to die. That night, I realized something. If no one was going to save me, I would have to save myself. 2 weeks later, I left. No goodbye, no note. Just a small suitcase, a wallet with barely enough money for gas, and a Bible missing half its pages, the one I used to press dried flowers in as a little girl. I drove until the sunrise spilled across the sky like warm gold, and I remember thinking, this light feels different. It didn't feel holy. It didn't feel miraculous, it just felt mine. In the months that followed, I tried new churches. Some welcomed me with open arms. Some whispered behind my back. Some told me I was courageous. Some told me I was living in sin. One woman, a stranger I met in a church lobby, looked into my eyes and said, "You're so brave to speak about it." But bravery wasn't what I felt. I felt grief. Grief for the faith I lost. Grief for the love I thought I had. And grief for the version of me who believed suffering was holiness. For a while, I couldn't touch my Bible. Every verse felt heavy, wrapped in memories of the people who had used it as a weapon instead of a comfort. But healing has a quiet way of returning to you when you least expect it. One morning, months later, I opened it again. This time, I didn't look at the verses they used to keep me small. I searched for the ones about love, kindness, protection, the things I missed the most, and I read them differently, slowly, softly, like I was learning a new language. I realized then that maybe God hadn't turned his back on me. Maybe the people had, and maybe, just maybe, God was the one who gave me the strength to walk away. That thought changed everything. I started to build a new kind of faith, one that didn't require obedience to suffering, one that didn't ask me to stay where I was breaking, one that didn't confuse silence with forgiveness or endurance with holiness. I learned that prayer doesn't have to be whispered in a church. Sometimes it's the sound of your own footsteps walking away from pain. Sometimes it's the moment you breathe without fear. Sometimes it's choosing yourself after a lifetime of choosing everyone else. Today, I still light a candle every Sunday, not for the man I left, not for the church that judged me, but for the woman who found her own way back to peace. Sometimes the flame flickers, just like my belief once did, but it always steadies, and when it does, I feel something warm settling in my chest. Not worship, not guilt, but freedom. People often ask me if I still believe, and I smile, a soft, knowing smile, one that belongs to someone who has walked through fire and didn't burn. I do, I say, just not the way they taught me. Because faith, real faith, isn't about staying where you're hurting. It isn't about shrinking yourself so someone else can feel powerful. It isn't about clinging to a place that refuses to protect you. Faith, I've learned, is trusting that you deserve peace, trusting that love will meet you where you are, trusting that walking away is not an act of rebellion, but an act of survival. And sometimes survival is the holiest thing you can do.